Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what if your energy field could unlock your business growth? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about on this episode. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Brews. All right, I dropped it in there because I pushed the button a little early, but that's cool. Let's get this one started. He's fusing ancient wisdom with modern tech, turning spiritual practices into real-world results. From biofield upgrades to unlocking quantum alignment, he's helping leaders rewire from within. Let's welcome to the show the founder of High Vibe Holonomics, Mr. Kyle Anthony Trautmann. All right, my brother, let's do this. Welcome to the program.
Let's go, man. Thank you so much.
All right, dude. There's a lot that you got going on when it comes to High Vibe Holonomics. And first, let's kind of go a little bit of background and then tell me, what is it exactly?
Yeah, totally. So I actually got started in bioenergetics. It's just a field of studying just all aspects of how energy moves through systems in 2016, and then slowly crept into the space of healing, essentially working more one-to-one with people. And then in 2023, we transitioned into a whole system outside of just the healing realm. And holonomics is just Greek for the whole law. And anything in science that's repeatable is a law. So if we're doing the whole law, taking care of all of the dynamics of energy systems, then we're taking care of the whole picture of just everything in life. So,
all right, give me a little rundown on what do we mean the whole? Because you're talking to an entrepreneur. They might be thinking financially, they might be thinking at home, they might be thinking spiritually. What do you mean on the whole?
Yeah, so we have 7 major energetic systems as humans going through the human experience. So the major one is the mental system, because life is mental. You also have the emotional, the physical, you have your spiritual, also that faith-based component. You also have your social, which intertwines your relationships. You have also your financial, occupational, and wealth dynamics as well. And then to kind of wrap it all up to really make it a whole picture, you have your environmental dynamics too. So dynamics is just a sexy word for system. So as systems move in a holistic fashion, you have the whole picture. And 7 represents completion and numerical law. So it's really about making sure you're maximizing each of those systems energetically.
Plus 7's a lucky number, man. It's one of those,
Totally.
maybe it's in the universe here, that in the ethos out there that kind of puts those things together. All right. Well, having all those things in perfect harmony is obviously the goal, but I don't think that's ever really the case. I have a mentor. He kind of has a circle that he has, and he kind of breaks it down into very similar categories. And one of the things he has people do is he goes through and he's like, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you feel you're doing in that particular aspect of your life? Wealth, finance, all the different areas like that. And you're talking a little bit different. How do we take inventory of where we are so that we can figure out where we want to go?
Totally. I mean, that's the ultimate question. And it's I would say the leading question onto where you want to be energetically. And we use inside of our practice, inside of our facilitation, and also within our institute, a process known as energy literacy. So really understanding what exactly you need from an energetic standpoint on all levels of your awareness. And the big thing about teaching people any energy, you have to start not only just from a brain standpoint, understanding the science behind the brain, but also the science behind the heart. Because if those two are working in tandem, we get into those biofield upgrades. And there's 3 levels of awareness. Actually, there's 4, but 3 ones that we focus on. It's the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. And then the body of awareness, what we call spirit, or you can call it God, however you want to slice that bread, right? Whatever your verbiage is on the take of what spirit is. And if we can teach you the assessment inside each level of awareness, we understand energetically where you're at. So going through a process of energy literacy just tells us exactly where each person is on each scale, kind of like going through a 0 to 10 scale for each of those 7 systems.
There are a number of different practices that people follow, and not everybody jumps on board. There's a lot of skeptics in almost every aspect of life that you come across. What kind of pushback do you get when you present your field to the average Joe?
Oh man. Just the notion that quantum physics and just the quantum side of life is still kind of a quack pseudoscience. There's a lot of measurements and metrics that have to kind of prove that side of things. So we're very thankful that we utilize neuroscience kind of as that binding, that glue between the metrics and also kind of the systems that we use. So that's like the biggest take back, is that this is kind of a little too woo-woo sometimes, but we are very rooted in the proper neuroscience in the process known as flow for post-traumatic growth, which is an emerging branch of neuroscience that's been around since 2022. So it's still new, but starting to gain traction on really how to treat more mental disparity disorders. But that is the biggest kickback we get, is this notion of the new age woo-woo. And we have to kind of nip that in the butt with the science kind of pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think the public's kind of getting conditioned to better accept things in the quantum realm, the multiverse. I think
For sure.
Hollywood and the Marvel Cinematic Universe has brought us to a whole new level, and now I can now I know a little bit about quantum dynamics just to make conversation, I guess.
Yeah,
as Black Widow says in the movie. But you have a lot of different I guess I can call it a lexicon, a vocabulary that you have within your industry that I think once you kind of understand what people mean by these words, you start to see a lot of what you're talking about in your everyday life.
Totally.
One of those words, for example, is you talk about biofield. Can you break that down? Like what is someone who's never heard of it before? What does that even mean?
Totally. So I use the term a torque field. So the biofield can kind of intertwine between those two definitions, but it's really about how to include the electrical energy inside your magnetic fields and also the harder to measure aspects of energy as well. So it's really about this notion of how do you encompass both the electrical and the magnetic activity, and that's through your brain and heart rhythms. And this also really just includes this massless I wouldn't even just say electromagnetic field, but just this energy that permeates through just living systems. And it's really just about how we regulate our physiology on an energetic level, and then also how we get back into homeostasis, essential balance, and harmony within our systems as well.
What would you say is like the biggest energy block that an entrepreneur kind of carries with them and they don't even know it? Maybe it's something that's stopping them from moving forward, from achieving a dream, or maybe even visualizing that place where they want to go.
That is such a great question. What I see most commonly when it comes down to energetic blocks is just the burnout and the hustle and grind. I think that is this conditioning where it's just like no sleep gang. Right. Yeah. Just like white knuckle yourself. I'm like, for a person that's burnt out in the past, like it just doesn't work. So I think the energetic block that I see is this conditioning that I have to work more to receive more. And then there's this deserving aspect where they feel very impartial to actually receiving help. So a lot of people have to, especially at the beginning, feel like they have to do it alone. And I went through the hard way too, when I first started. But then I realized the leverage of having people, having teams makes it so not just easier, but just more enjoyable. So I think this notion of work more is going to produce more, which actually doesn't. It just kind of produces this notion of busyness where it gives you this like kind of pseudo, almost like a facade that you're actually producing. That's the biggest that I see with people who come into our
I think I'm going to push back on that one a little bit and kind of using your own practice in favor of that, because I know there's a lot of people that struggle to work really hard at something, mainly because it's not something they want to do. Like I feel like if you get the vibe right, if you get the like if it's something you love, you hear that saying all the time, right? If you do something you love, you never work a day in your life, which is BS, because you still work. It's just that the work doesn't feel like a grind because you're doing something that you're passionate about. Is there a way where we can kind of identify some of these things and align maybe that energy with that work ethic, because at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to happen unless we take action and do the work.
Totally.
So how can I get myself aligned so that I'm doing the work that I've been called here to do?
This is beautiful, man. And I love the pushback on that notion, because I know exactly what you're saying in reference to what I had alluded to. It's actually really about the challenge skills ratio balance. And this is where we actually get into the flow state and the neuroscience behind the structure of how you're built. And for me, when I see the activities and character values aligned with people, energy just moves effortlessly through systems. So you're totally correct on that notion. It's like, yes, we have to take action, right? There is no law of thinking without the law of action, right? We have to move to actually make things happen. But when you have your activity values truly defined, and then you're actually in alignment with your character values, it doesn't promote values conflict, which is one of the burnout triggers, which starts to impede on the energetic system as you're moving towards things. Because that's exactly how I learned, was through Kobe Bryant. Immaculate, just insane work ethic, but he loved everything he did. So it didn't feel like this crazy grind to, a John Q. Public, who was kind of going through this process of trying to understand a grind, essentially. I think redefining the perspective and definition of what a grind is too is super, super helpful for people. But staying within your activities and character values makes more energy profound for what you're actually trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Kobe knew exactly what he wanted to do since he was like a kid, and then he worked towards it, right? Not all of us kind of align that way. When you have proper alignment, when you're in that flow state, it just comes, like time just flies by. The productivity is amazing. The results tend to come in really good, but getting into that flow state can be tough because you got kids, or you got your health you need to work on, you got your finances that you need to deal with. And the other side of it is that grind is always, at least in the entrepreneurial space, it's always been one of those, I don't have work-life balance. I don't believe that there is a balance. You can do one, you can do the other, but you can't be doing them necessarily at the same time. When it comes to alignment and getting in that flow state, does it require balance, or are we like kind of still giving an understanding that this is my focus at this point, I'm sacrificing the time to achieve this, but I get to do also these other things at a different moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, that in its essence is one of the most beautiful questions too, because inside our facilitation, all the students that I work with, they know me to say I don't believe in the word balance because it's not found in nature. There is harmony in nature. So you do have an opportunity to harmonize, obviously, your energetic rhythms, but that balance notion, I'm right there with you. It doesn't exist, especially when you're trying to get off the chopping block and trying to build momentum at the beginning of things. It's really about your values almost have to be in sacrificing certain pleasures, especially at the beginning, just so you can really build out the fortitude and the thick skin to go through this process. Because once you get like you said, the lexicon, the language, you really get the repetitions down, that's going to be built on the foundation. And the foundation, you really have to kind of dig for it at the beginning. And that is going to come with a lot of sacrifice. And there is no balance there, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and it's the discipline, right?
Totally.
My mother-in-law says that's like an evil word. She doesn't like the word discipline, right? And I think it's also funny because it's all when you grow up a certain way, discipline can be a very bad thing that causes trauma in your life. And of course you look at it that way. But on the flip side, it's also probably the thing that you need the most. It's you loving yourself enough to not do something or to set a time aside to do something. But it's difficult at first. I think that's why the discipline has that negative connotation. But if you discipline yourself, after a while, it becomes just what you do. It's your habit. It's how you get into this state. When I wake up in the morning, I get myself gym ready, and the first thing I do in the morning is my workout. It's just what I do. It sucked the first couple of years when I was doing it, right? That was the discipline. Now it's my peace. Now I get there, and it's how I get my day started, and gives me the clarity that I need, the nutrients that my body requires in order to do its best work. I'm assuming that when you work with students, there's got to be some sort of like a session or something that goes into play so that they can kind of understand themselves, figure out where they want to go, align their energy, and get themselves rewired maybe from the inside out to kind of help other people help themselves. What are your sessions like when people work with you?
For sure. And the one thing I just wanted to go back on what you said about this notion of discipline, we also within our walls here, we add the emotional quotient to discipline, which we call devotion. Right. So your devotion is just that emotional equivalency that you add to the foundation of discipline, which makes it actually more enjoyable rather than a grind, right?
Yeah.
But the process for people coming in, everybody gets a consultation just so we can see where you're at energetically within the 3 to 4 levels of awareness. And then everybody gets a program orientation built out, customized for them. Because some people need some more help on the physical side. Some people need some more help on the emotional side. Some people need more help literally getting the courage to be more social, which has been proven to be one of the biggest health barometers in our life. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're not very social, it's going to be very, very hard for you to be successful if you do not know how to get past that bridge. So it really depends on where people are at. And then when we go through, the process of energy literacy, seeing what the trauma continuum is and seeing what the burnout audits, and then also seeing what their inner work and inner play formula is, it gives us a better understanding of really how to assess moving forward with each individual. But yeah, they're always guaranteed a consultation and a program orientation to really build out what they need.
Now, when they're there, you blend that quantum physics with spiritual wisdom together. Give me a brief overview of what those two are, and then how do you bridge the gap between them for your clients?
Yeah, great question, because the ancient wisdom, we use a system known as the Power Five, which is a blend between meditation, mental rehearsal, visualization, yoga nidra, as well as just the process of creative imagery, kind of all blended into one. And these are all rooted in Eastern philosophies and Eastern religions, mainly more so on the Vedic side. But you have the prana notion, the key, the luminous energy field kind of healing from the Andean aspects. So there's all these ancient techniques that formulate themselves into what science can now verify what these ancient practices were already doing for civilizations prior. And for me, it's the metrics, right? So the neuroscience behind it gives us the glue because we do our best to keep everything non-dogmatic. So using a lot of separatist language keeps people feeling like they're not included into the energetic aspect of what we're talking about. So really using science as a glue, essentially a binder, to really get people to understand, if they can see the measurements, see the metrics from the studies that are appropriate to what we're learning, they can reverse engineer to actually see what their practice looks like and how it can benefit them and where they're at.
I love that, and it's all about getting that quantum alignment, right?
Totally.
Getting straight with what you're looking for. Now, you also talk about quantum alignment upgrades. Like, what does that really mean, especially for people that are looking for this in terms of like their business performance or their daily life?
Totally. It's looking at the 3 major levels of awareness: the conscious, the subconscious, and unconscious. And most people, especially just in the field, not only just of neuroscience, but coaching, just talk about the subconscious. And the subconscious and unconscious are actually 2 different things. So when you look at the sub formulation of the conscious mind, right? The subconscious, that's your filtration system of all the conditioning and the imprints that you've been getting from the world outside of yourself. But the unconscious is that automatic function. You were talking and really alluding to the notion of discipline earlier. That's your what we call automacity. It's your capacity for automatic function. That's completely different from your emotional filtration system, which is all of the emotional components coming from your limbic system. And then obviously you have your conscious mind, which is really executing everything kind of in that cohesiveness. So the quantum upgrade is, instead of seeing just the vision, right, which is conscious, seeing the clarity, which is the subconscious, we're really getting into the identity center, how people are associating with who they think they are based off past conditioning that is repetitious over time. We call it the trauma continuum. It's really going to that level 3, piercing through those first 2 walls that are really kind of keeping you essentially stuck with where you're at, and allowing that memory imprint that has associated these type of identities to surface and properly be scrubbed from your mainframe. So our process, known as subconscious dynamics, is just a one-to-one facilitation where we get to cut through all the noise and do about 6 to 8 months worth of meditation work just in 90 minutes.
Dude, that's impressive. I mean, everybody knows the conscious stuff. It's when we're awake. It's when we're talking. The subconscious stuff, we all try to work on because we want to improve our subconscious, get our mind aligned right, start thinking the right way. That way we don't walk into a day thinking negatively, right? You look outside, it's gloomy, and all of a sudden the rest of your day is messed up. No, it can't work that way. You got to kind of align yourself. And then you talked a little bit about the unconscious, and that kind of made me think, is there a way where we can kind of talk to that unconscious, talk to that subconscious while we're conscious, and kind of take control. Because one of the things that always has fascinated me is when you have that ability to like lucid dream, in that and just get into that environment. It's almost like the Matrix White Room, right? You can get in there and kind of create or do whatever you want. And I feel like if we can get into that, I mean, we want to do it when we're awake in that flow state, but when we're asleep, being able to talk to our unconscious, being able to control, maybe have lucid dreams. Is there a way to kind of condition ourselves on a daily basis to be able to have more power to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that we teach in our facilitation is called first impression language. So you have this beautiful time, about a tenth of a second, all the way up to about 7 seconds, usually happens within 3 seconds, of any information presented to you, whether it's a question or anything is presented to you. Say maybe you have the TV on or something's happening out in front of you in the world. You have that tenth of a second up to about 7 seconds for your body to respond. And what's beautiful about the body being unconscious is it can't tell you any lies. It has no fundamental rationale to tell you any lies. And that's what the rational mind does a really good job. It likes to tell us lies to keep us comfortable with how shitty we feel about ourselves sometimes. So when we actually use first impression language, which we teach in our facilitation, it allows you to drop in, which is the key step, right? It's the key step to getting into the release phase before you move into flow. And there's a massive flow cycle that you have to actually study to understand even how to get into flow and how to actually recover from flow, because it's very taxing on your neurotransmitters and neurochemically. So when we teach first impression language, it can allow you to really trust in that open space. And that open space, we call it like the blackness, right? When you close your eyes, it's that painting of creation, what happens with your creative imagery. So yeah, it's very possible. It's just always up to the governing laws of your consciousness, which is repetition, which is the mother of all remembrance, and then your association, which is the mother of how you learn, right? So how you learn and how you remember things is how you're going to actually train yourself. So that is the key way that we teach our students how to just truly drop in to the unconscious and start painting a different picture.
How does someone know when they're like energetically in alignment or they're out of alignment, so that and then basically what's that first step that they need to take to fix it? And I'll kind of give you an example, because I don't believe in bad days. I believe in bad moments. Things happen, right? But we have control over these different things. For example, when someone passes away, you don't have control over that. And there's definitely grieving moments and things you got to go through. But people often, especially at events like that, I'm not big on like crying and kind of move on. I'm like, Bare Naked Ladies in the song, right? One week he says, I'm the kind of guy that laughs at a funeral.
Right.
That's kind of me. And the when asked, how can you do that? I always think to myself, at some point, I'm going to be laughing again. I'm going to be thinking about this person, and I'm going to be remembering the fun times and a smile on my face. So why can't that moment be now? Right. And so that kind of shifts my energy at that moment to kind of bring me to a good point. And I can't do that with everything, but that's one that I know that I can give a good shift to. So when does somebody know when they're out of energetic alignment, and what's something they can do to fix it?
Yeah. I mean, I love what you said there too, because from a person that has survived 2 near-death experiences, that, crossing over to the other side, it is the greatest entrance into a brand new life, which is never meant to be mourned on that level. I'm just saying, those people that do pass on to that veil or pass through that veil are in a better place. There's no question about it. But for me, it's just, are they complaining? Like you can tell if somebody's complaining and forgetting to be grateful of life, the fact that they have breath, the fact that they have an opportunity to move, the fact that they have an opportunity to do anything really with their life, and they're complaining too much. Direct, obvious notion that they're out of energetic alignment. So for me, when I see that, it's like, all right, we gotta dial that back in and get you to drop back into the body so you can authentically feel what this is trying to say, because your heart is going to tell you the truth, right? It's part of the body. So when you're up here, you're in a high or a mid-range beta where it's just up here and it's kind of like toilet bowl. You're ruminating really about things that can't matter. At the end of the day, it's taking you out about what's this trying to guide you to. And this is just ultimately gratitude and you receiving, those blessings in life. But yeah, that's the clear-cut example of people are just whining, crying, poo-poo. We call it poopy pants attitude here. If they're in that space, definitely out of alignment for sure.
Let me ask you about like results, right? At the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, we're always looking for results. We test, we try, but at the end of the day, we're looking for results. What results have
Yeah.
you seen with your clients after working with you? Any stories you can share with us?
Yeah, the biggest one, and for those checking out the website, there is a testimonial page for massive, kind of stories on that end. But the biggest one is we had a student come in who was just on the tailor end of deciding to just be like, hey, I want to move past substance abuse. Notorious, was on heroin for 20 plus years. Was an alcoholic at the same time too. And right as we started to work together, she just decided to be like, yo, we're done. And she had worked with me for a couple of years. And if you just saw the before and after pictures, it is insane. So it's just like, those just light up my world because it's really about the individual choosing. That's my favorite story. And I also think it's just, when people are so strapped, down, and they feel like so bogged down by just too much information, simplifying their process so they can really understand what it means to be a kid again. Right, really what it means to play, seeing people get back into that playful animated state. A lot of people don't realize, and studies have shown that if we're in a playful state, we learn and unlearn faster than we do through traditional reps. Right. So getting people back into that playful state allows them to decondition and also properly retrain themselves a lot quicker. So there's a massive amount of those stories too. But I would say the biggest one for me, and this is a little near dear to my heart, is my dad signed up with me last year. He was having some lateral issues, movement issues in his lower half, and he was falling every so often. He's in his mid 60s, and since signing on with me, going through the process, going through our entire system, he's been with me for just about a year. He hasn't fallen since. So for me, having that with the experience with my father, the man that helped bring me into this world, that's probably the biggest thing for me, for sure.
I think the biggest obstacle for you is always going to be the skeptical, the curious but skeptical. So if there's somebody out there right now who's curious about what you do, but maybe they're a little bit skeptical, what's the best way for them to explore these types of transformations so that it might be something they can give it a shot?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely reach out on social. I'm an open book. I make myself available, especially as much as I can, for questions. But we also do a HVH High Vibe open house bi-weekly every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central, per month. So we do 2 of those. So if you want to come in, see our system, see our structures, ask questions, meet our team, which is really, really cool. That's the best way to get, kind of everything started and just start the dialogue. Realize that we have a ton of fun what we do. We keep it very comedy forced. We have a lot of time, laughter, through this process, and really love to make jokes out of situations in life. So just come, at least start the conversation, so you can kind of pick up on the vibe, see if this is something that's actually worth exploring for you.
Dude, what you're doing, I think it reshapes people's lives completely. I don't think they quite understand how much energy we have and how much power we have with that energy. Some people you can't deny it because you can be in a crowd. Maybe you go to church, maybe you go to school, maybe you go to work, and there's that person that walks in the room, and when they walk in the room, everything changes. They have this aura about them, this energy about them, and that is something that, believe it or not, you can control in your own life, right? You can give yourself that same confidence. You can have that same aura growing and helping others if you learn to kind of do this work for yourself. So ladies and gentlemen, High Vibe Holonomics is the website. It's scrolling across the bottom here. And if you guys are even a bit curious, you feel like you're a little bit off, I suggest you head over, give your information over, have that conversation, because you never know what doors will open for you if you just take the action. I know it might sound a little weird, but if it changes your life dramatically for the better, it's totally worth it. Kyle, before we head out, any final thoughts?
No, man, just thank you. Like I said, this is my first opportunity to speak to anybody, on a public platform in close to 20 months, just based off of recovering from a brain injury. So I'm just thankful beyond measure and beyond words just to be able to be on this platform and talk about what I do and what I love to do. So thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Hey man, real quick.
Sure.
How powerful was it for you knowing what you know and how to kind of realign your energy 20 months ago when you were really on like life and limb, like barely
Yeah.
making it. What was that like, shifting and then getting to a point where you are here today, like perfectly coherent, speaking with energy, like, you know, I mean, congratulations on that transformation, but what was that like?
Man, it's terrifying because you work so hard, you know, put together something, and then just in a blink of an eye, you don't really know what's going to happen, and you have to instigate. I wouldn't even say reinstigate. You have to reinitiate your faith at a different level. And for me, it taught me what it meant to surrender more, you know, to, you know, walk with a deeper reverence for life. And yeah, it was terrifying. But honestly, man, I think when we hit rock bottoms, to me, that was a form of rock bottom, anatomically, at least. You get to see how grateful you get to be for life, and you get to love people even more. And you get to, you know, I get a little choked up about it because, you know, you get to surface through those memories. And in that process, you just get to not take things for granted. And that's the one thing that I told myself coming back from that. I was like, I just want to give everybody the energy that I have. And I know that I'll be taken care of just based off of that giving. So that, in its essence, was one of the best experiences that ever happened to me. It sounds weird, but usually people that go through crazy stuff, they're going to say the same thing. It's like the thing that broke them or near broke them is usually what they're most grateful for. And I'm definitely in that camp for sure.
I totally agree, man. On a smaller scale, I remember when my son was really small, probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, riding a bike, falls over, scrapes his elbow, and he's like hurting. And I tell him, and this is one of the things he remembers. I go, see that scar right there? That's going to be a story that you can tell forever, right? And that's, you know, that's our war wounds. That's just kind of how it works. You know, the life is full of happy moments, and they're great, but you don't really know what they mean to you until you go through the down moments. And, you know, those also shape you as well. Kyle, thank you very much for coming on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, if your vibe is off, make sure you guys go to highvibeholonomics.com, get your energy aligned, get yourself in a position where you can be productive again, get yourself in the flow state on command. highvibeholonomics.com. Kyle, thank you very much for being on the program. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz